them dreams so big that they'll haunt you, or they'll calm you. That's how you know if you gotta go and get it, get to win and not conquer. I had to go out and get it without a sponsor. Kept it real, never crooked, yeah, that's honor. Now I can go out and get it how I want to. Hashtag blessed, I choose.
What is up, YouTube? What is up, Rumble? Welcome back to the Ryan Matta Show. I'm your host, Ryan Matta. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. We have an amazing interview with one of my friends, my new friends, that is, DENIZ Saw It. He goes by at Satoshi DENIZ over on X. If you guys get a chance, swing over and follow his work. He's putting out a lot of great educational content on Bitcoin, funny meme stuff as well. Before I over talk it, I'm gonna bring DENIZ on. I'm gonna let DENIZ introduce himself. How you doing, buddy? Welcome to the show. Oh, you're on mute. Yeah.
Thanks for having me on, Ryan.
There he is. I go right before we go live. I go, hey, you can mute yourself, but I don't want to do it because I'm going to forget to bring you off mute. Sure. I always do it, man. I always do it. So welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I've seen a few of your episodes, and I really like the direction you're taking them in. Yeah, it's Bitcoin, and then it's like patriotism as well. I'm really into that.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. It's an honor to have you on the show. So let's hear a little bit about your story. Let's start from the beginning. Where are you from? Where'd you grow up? And then we'll kind of go from there.
Sure, man. I was born in Dallas, Texas, and then my parents met in New York at NYU. So they eventually moved back to New York. So still New York, seeing the fam, etc. And then I think when around I started hearing about Bitcoin was 2013, and the Winklevoss twins were on CNBC talking about, I guess, the recent $1,000 run up. So at the time I was kind of learning about finance and getting into things like PE ratios and intrinsic value of things. I was just on my, the beginning of my investor journey. So I didn't really take Bitcoin too seriously. Which makes sense. I mean, I'm trying to figure out where to put my money, and I'm not going to throw it into something I have no idea anything about. So I kind of just wrote it off. And also, I think another thing that happened was, I guess, even before that, I guess the Social Network movie came out, and it kind of gave me not a very good impression of the Winklevoss twins. So I figured, okay, they're just trying to scam me or something into buying into this coin thing that or this currency that goes up and down like crazy. So I didn't initially understand that at all. I was wondering what if it's a currency, why does it go up and down so much against the dollar? Didn't make sense to me, but I didn't look into it. And I think at the time Cyprus was going through I guess what they call today is clawbacks. They were basically just taking just customer funds from their accounts just to bail out the country. So it makes perfect sense why it ran up to $1,000 during that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of forgot about it from 2013 to 2017. Didn't hear anything about Bitcoin until, I guess, the run up with all the shit coins and everything. So I figured, oh, okay, what is Bitcoin like? I think it was 8 to 10K at the time. I was like, oh, I kind of missed out on that. So I started shitcoining into Doge, end of 2017. So this is October, November, December of 2017.
It's around the time that Cardano was running up to about $1.20, right?
Yeah, I wasn't even, I don't know. I wasn't even into Cardano at the time. I thought every coin out there was a meme. So I was like, I'll just stick with Dogecoin. That's the biggest meme. So yep. I'm just gonna put I don't even know how much I put. It was probably $600 into Dogecoin. So I'm like, it's not a lot of money. So if I lose everything, I'm not gonna cry about it. So that's kind of where I learned everything about cold storage and even paper wallets. I was using paper wallets because I didn't want to pay for a hardware wallet. I was like, okay, I'll just mess around with Doge and practice on that. And if I lose anything, I really don't care. But yeah, I come from an IT background. So that's kind of how I got more involved with, I guess, the cryptocurrency space. I was learning about mining, and at the time, ETH was proof of work. So I was like, oh, it's too expensive to invest in like mining hardware for Bitcoin. I'll just do ETH and I'll play games on my PC or something at the time
Yeah.
while it mines, or I guess contributes hash power to like a pool.
Yeah.
And then I get paid out in Bitcoin, but it's technically mining ETH. I don't know. It was just layers and layers of like not committing to what Bitcoin really was all about.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think around the spring of 2019, we were kind of having a comeback.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's doing the same thing it was doing the past like 2 cycles I missed out on. I should probably look into this and maybe like buy some Bitcoin. Maybe actually like figure out what's going on in this space. So it kind of just went from there. I think at the time I had a lot of like issues with my current job, or at the time I was just thinking like, well, I'm not going to make nearly enough money, I guess, in the trajectory that I was going to be like, yeah, I can't be like an independent person. So I was thinking like, okay, what other specific things can I look into? I guess even within the IT industry, or like technology and finance. And then I don't know, Bitcoin perfectly merges those two, and it's been I'm not going to say it's been like gravy the whole time, but like on my end, it's been gravy. Macro, it's just been like a crazy shit show the whole time. But because Bitcoin was there, it made everything like really smooth out for my personal life. So I guess that's where we are today. Just like hanging out on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it now, and just like
Mm-hmm.
shit posting and memeing.
So tell me a little bit about that. You say it kind of smoothed everything out in your life. Dive into that a little bit deeper. Was this because you started to adopt the Bitcoin standard and you were putting your wealth into an asset that's going to continue to appreciate it in value, that even if you weren't making enough money in the real world, it was still, the interest was compounding on Bitcoin, so it smoothed everything out? Can you dive a little bit deeper into that?
Yeah, it's a bit of that. I think mainly it was like just like because I felt very primed for Bitcoin. Like a lot of the things that I believed in were very much a part of like the Bitcoin ethos, just being sovereign, independent, not relying on third parties. Uh, and it kind of, like, if you stay in Bitcoin long enough, it really does reveal a lot of the lies and the psyops that have been going on for the last like, well, I guess since I guess since Bretton Woods, but more so, I guess, towards like 2020 and to now.
Mm-hmm.
So because I was able to, I guess, find a group of people online who thought the same way, I was like, oh, okay, I'm not crazy. I'm not
Yeah.
insane. I actually, I'm not part of the sickness within society. Like,
Yep.
there's a reason why I guess I didn't feel at like, I guess, content with things, because I knew everything was wrong, especially looking into like 2008. That's also kind of why I held off on Bitcoin a lot, because I thought it would be sort of like that type of situation with Bitcoin, even though the whole cause of the financial crisis during like 2008, 2009 was because of the system that I was investing in at the time, stocks, equities, bonds, real estate. But it was, Bitcoin's actually the solution for that. So it kind of just helped my mental state to affirm that I was not crazy. Everything else was wrong.
Yeah. It's crazy that when I left crypto about 2 years ago and went into politics, so many people were so upset that I was going into politics. They didn't want to talk about it. They wanted nothing to do with it. And I said, I understand. I don't blame you guys. Keep do whatever you have to do for your family, but I'm gonna get in the fight and try to fight to save our country, because I was watching one party wanting to destroy crypto, and I was watching one party wanting to kind of protect freedom to an extent. I think both parties are rotten and corrupt at the core, but one seems to try to have some type of values, and those values align more with mine. So I'm going to fight for that party. Now, if it wasn't for Trump, I don't know if I'd really be fighting for that party, because I believe in that man, and I think he can fix some of the things that have gone wrong in our country. And it's like when we jumped on this morning, we were talking a few minutes, but you had mentioned politics in it 2 years ago. People wanted nothing to do with my show. And I thought when I came over back into crypto that I would have a hard time, bringing some more people on the show to talk because of my political standpoint. And it's so crazy to me the amount of people that are just like, no, man, I'll talk about politics. If you want to go down that route, we can. Because you're right, they do kind of meet. And when you find that group of people that are like-minded, you really start to connect, and then you start to realize how many things you have in common, and that, each other, we're not the enemy. Even though as much as they want us to be enemies with each other, Bitcoin is that, I think Michael Saylor said it best, it's like a union for the middle class. When you start adopting the Bitcoin standard, you automatically get involved with this giant network that's on a global scale that wants freedom, that wants sovereignty, that wants to be able to store their wealth in an asset that's not going to get, inflated away by a corrupt tyrannical government. So I think I couldn't agree with you more that it really mellows your life out when at least something's consistent in your life. Everything else is, you invest in real estate, you don't know if they're going to come and put a migrant processing facility in your backyard. I talked about this lady I went down and interviewed in Texas, right? She has a beautiful property in San Antonio, Texas. The economy was just booming down there. They put a migrant facility in her town, and she wakes up one morning. This was like a year after it came in, but she woke up and there's a migrant taking a deuce in her front lawn, and there's 2 migrants in her backyard in her swimming pool taking a shower. And I go, how is that property, right? How's your property value now in San Antonio, right? Bitcoin is digital property. So how do you feel about people that may be just hearing about crypto right now for the first time? Like you had said, when you got into it in 2017, you're like, oh, I missed the cycle. Bitcoin's too expensive. Bitcoin's at 70K right now. What would be your message to people that are just now getting into crypto who think that I can't afford a whole Bitcoin? I'm not going to invest it. I'm going to go find some shit coins and I'm going to make a bunch of money and then I'm going to put that money into Bitcoin.
Yeah. It's kind of tough just because, there's a lot of discussion, especially on Twitter, about like whether or not it's even worth helping people out at this point. And I kind of get that. Like, I totally understand that. Bitcoin's been around for like 15 years. If you didn't get it by a certain point, it's like, come on, man. Like, where have you been the last like 15 whatever years? But if you are starting out, I don't think it really matters like how much you have, as long as you have some. So like, let's say you want to start investing now. All right. And if you're inclined to do like shitcoining or degen, like leverage trading, etc., on like these random coins that keep pumping, like, I don't know, there's like all these like soul meme coins that people keep posting about. I'm like, it's so stupid, but I can see why they're pumping.
Dog with a hat, bro. $2
Dog with
billion
hat.
market. Dog with a hat. I go, what is dog with a hat? And I go on their website, and it was literally a dog, and it says with a hat. Dog with a hat. $2 billion market cap. What the fuck?
Yeah.
But anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it's crazy. Just do something like, I don't know, like, they have the 60-40 in traditional finance. Just do something like 90-10, like within, I don't know, the crypto space. So like, ideally, I'd say just go 100% into Bitcoin. But I know people are going to gamble anyways. So it's like, I don't know, put like 5 to 10% of whatever you're thinking of putting in the overall space, and just, I don't know, throw it into dog with hat, I guess. I mean, don't expect to make millions of dollars, and I please expect to get rugged, because I don't know how any of that stuff works. Just assume you're going to get rugged. So you put in $5. Don't be sad that it goes to zero, or I don't know, it loses 99% of its value. But yeah, I mean, the irresponsible thing is to not have any Bitcoin at this point, in my opinion. So even if you have like 500,000 Satoshis, or like 0.01% of a Bitcoin, that's a million Satoshis. What is that? That's like 700 something bucks. I mean, if you get a million of those guys, you'll be ahead of everyone else. So at least get a million. And then if you can't spare any other, I don't know, change towards Bitcoin, just, I guess, forget about it. And then wait like 10 years until that million Satoshis is like $1 million, or whatever number people are coming up with now on like what the actual price is going to be. But yeah, just, I don't know. I've seen so many people be forced into selling their Bitcoin, or they have it with BlockFi, or they have it with FTX, and then they get rugged. Just please, guys, look into self-custody. If you are going to buy some Bitcoin, there's also the issue of the UTXOs, where if you're withdrawing really small amounts, there are periods and times where it's really expensive to move that money. So if you're taking like $10 out of an exchange at a time and putting into cold storage, you're going to have issues later on to pay the fees to move it somewhere, like maybe back on an exchange, or you're trying to, I don't know, put it onto Lightning or Liquid to pay someone in Bitcoin.
Yep.
Just, I guess just be patient and wait for like 500,000 Satoshis to 1 million Satoshis before withdrawing it. So at least you can move a good amount for, a cheaper percentage for those transactions, when they start spamming the mempool again. So yeah, it's a little complicated. I know, like for anyone new just starting out, like they probably don't even know what I've been like saying the whole time. Like what's a mempool, like what's UTXO, etc. Just get an account with like, I don't know, Gemini, Coinbase, or any of the like dedicated Bitcoin ones. If you have access to those, like Cash App, Strike, River. If you have access to those in the States or in Europe or wherever you are, just start with that and then learn along the way. Like you're not going to learn until you put in like a sizable amount. So if you put in $10, you're probably going to forget about it. But if you put in 1,000, maybe you'll be more likely to invest the time into learning about it, because you'll see, oh, we're at 80K now. Oh, we're at 90K now. Like I just made like $200 on my like small Bitcoin purchase. Like that's the incentive for you to actually learn what's going on, so you can keep your wealth and not lose it, and then end up like an FTX depositor, where they left it there, and now they're going to get paid out, but they're going to get paid out at November 2022 prices. So like if you had one whole Bitcoin on FTX, they're only going to pay you 16K, and it's $70,000 right now. So you got scammed. Like make sure that doesn't happen.
Are you serious? They're not going to give you the amount of crypto that you had in your wallet. They're going to go give you the dollar value of the crypto you had in your wallet?
Yeah, at the time that they lost it. So yeah, don't do that, guys.
Unbelievable. No
do not do
way.
That. So just be aware of like where you're leaving your Bitcoin. So yeah, I don't know. It's a different ballgame now. We were talking about that earlier, just because of how the ETFs are coming into play and they're scooping up all these Bitcoin. I think because Wall Street is involved now, there's still a chance, that we'll have rug pulls within exchanges, but there's now less of a chance because the big bad actors are gone. They flushed them out. They got rid of CZ. They got rid of SBF. They got rid of Do Kwon. They got rid of all these guys, just to, I guess, like make things seem, I guess, like more professional. Like the big boys are now taking control of the space at this point because they have the most money, so they're going to buy the most coin for their clients. And they're probably going to do everything they can to make sure that this doesn't blow up in their faces. There's really no incentive for them to like rug their clients that they've been, servicing for however many decades, because a lot of them are, older. They're older boomers, and they don't necessarily know what Bitcoin is, but they see this thing going up and they're just like, okay, yeah, give me like 5,000 shares of that ETF you guys just made or whatever. So it's definitely a different ballgame, but you still have to be responsible at the end of the day.
Do you know if there's any proof of reserves? I know last time when the FTX stuff went down and everything was going on, CZ suggested that every exchange start putting out proof of reserves. And I thought that was a really good thing to do. And then you take a look at these ETFs, and the day before that the ETFs got approved, or the week before, they had changed the laws where these Bitcoin ETFs don't actually have to hold in custody physical Bitcoin. As long as they have the dollar equivalent in their account, they can then quote unquote sell you shares of their Bitcoin ETFs. Have you seen anything about these ETFs actually showing proof of reserves? Is there any way that we actually know the amount of Bitcoin that somebody holds? Or is that just like Coinbase going, oh yeah, BlackRock quote unquote has 275,000 shares of Bitcoin on our exchange?
Yeah. There has been one ETF. I think it's Bitwise. I'll have to look at all of them, but I'm pretty sure Bitwise is the only one so far who's proven that they have the reserves that they're claiming. They posted about it, I think, like pretty shortly after the ETF came out. It must have been like 3 or 4 weeks after the ETF launched. They said, "Oh, here's our address. You guys can see all the funds coming in every day."
No way.
And yeah, Bitwise started doing that. It's also kind of complicated because like you could just show any address. So I'm not sure if they like signed to verify that it's their actual address, but the numbers that they're putting up on their website versus the ones going into that address are equivalent. So it's pretty safe to assume it's their actual address.
Yeah.
I mean, if they lie, then they're in trouble with the SEC at that point. It's like, why are you guys lying? But what was pretty cool about that whole situation was that people started donating to that address. So now the investors have like extra Bitcoin for no reason right now. I don't know if people are still donating, but that's like one one thing that they didn't foresee happening. Like I don't think anyone foresaw that happening. It's like, oh, if you just hand out the public address to people, they're going to start sending you Bitcoin. Like, I mean, come on, guys, don't do that. But it's funny. It's just funny how that happened because they don't need any more Bitcoin than what the clients are buying.
Yeah, that's absolutely hilarious, man. Well, then that's going to be the number one ETF, I guess, that I approve. Was it you who shared the video of somebody that said investing in a Bitcoin ETF would be like buying yourself a ticket on like an all-inclusive cruise line to the Bahamas, and then right before you start getting ready to go on the trip, somebody from the cruise line calls you and say, "Hey, you got a package on your front door," and you go out and grab it, and it's a VR headset, and they're like, "Oh, by the way, you're not going to go actually on the cruise. You're going to sit on your couch. You're going to put on this VR headset. And by the way, we're going to charge you a fee to rent that headset, but it's going to be just like the real thing. I promise you." Is that you who shared that?
I'm not sure. I might have retweeted it. Yeah, that sounds familiar. I forgot who it was. I don't know if it was Beauty On or I have to check which account that was. But it was a very
really
good
analogy. Very good,
Yeah.
man. How do you feel about these ETFs? Would you ever recommend somebody buying an ETF instead of just buying the Bitcoin themselves?
I think it really depends on the person's situation. Ideally, I don't want you to buy the ETF, but if you don't want to learn anything and if you want your funds to be managed by someone else and you want to pay the what are the rates now? I think it's like 0.12% to 0.25.
It's like 12,000 for every million, isn't it? A year or something like that?
Oh yeah, I guess if you have like a million in there, you have to pay like 12 to 25K or something. But yeah, if you want to do that, you're more than welcome to do that. I can kind of see the appeal just because like a lot of people use stocks like Tesla, Apple, Amazon to excuse me, to borrow against so that they don't actually have to sell their assets.
Yep.
I can see the appeal there if you really want to go that route. But ideally you don't do that. But I can't tell people what to do with their money. But if you want to like let's say you have locked up funds, this is probably the perfect use case. So like if you have a 401k or there's retirement money you can't access until you're actually like 59 and a half to 65, yeah, just put it all into either MicroStrategy stock, MSTR, or something like IBIT or FBTC or Bitwise. Then I think that makes the most sense because at least you get the exposure to price appreciation. And I think that's what Wall Street really wants you to do at the end of the day anyway. It's like, well, you can have access to all this price appreciation. You can, get rich, but as long as we manage your funds, we don't care what you do with your money at that point. They're not going to try and like rug you. I mean, if they do, then I think at that point, like we have bigger problems within the financial system, which, may or may not come to fruition within the next like 10 to 20 years. But if you're paranoid like me, you're gonna hold your own keys. So it really depends on the person's situation. If you're young, if you're like under 40, like I think the rule on the internet now is like if you're over like 40 or 45, you're officially a boomer. So if you're not a boomer, just put it all into like, just buy off a Cash App and then put it into like a little cold storage wallet, like with Trezor or Cold Card or whatever they're using now.
And so I did a show last night, and I had a buddy when I first started over on LFA TV, which was about a year ago. And he had reached out talking about crypto. And I said, you should cash out your entire 401k. You should get out of these markets and you should put it all into Bitcoin. And he goes, oh man, I got to pay. I can't do that. I'm not able to retire until I'm 55. And he goes, and I go, well, I cashed out my entire 401k in 2017 and put it all into Bitcoin. And he goes, well, I'd have to pay a 25% fee. And I go, well, let's walk through this, right? You're going to pay a 25% fee. Okay. But you're going to invest it into an asset that's gaining at 194% on average per year, every year for the last 15 years. So he didn't do it, right? And then he started to go, oh man, I said, well, if I was going to do that, this is before the ETFs. I said, the only place I would be putting it is something like MicroStrategy. And he goes, oh, all right. I think he sent me a screenshot the next day saying he put it in a MicroStrategy. And then he started sending me screenshots about the mining companies that are mining Bitcoin. And I go, dude, I don't know. Not really a fan of those, And I didn't think about it then, but now it makes sense. It's like people were heavily invested in the mining companies because were wanting to get exposure to Bitcoin, and they couldn't get kind of direct exposure to Bitcoin. Then you see that when these ETFs get approved, I don't think people really realize it, that a majority of the people that were investing in those mining companies couldn't because there wasn't a Bitcoin ETF. So as soon as that ETF launched, I think you're going to see a lot of money, even though Bitcoin's booming and you think these mining companies would be making a lot of money. It's the fact that I think a lot of that money is leaving those mining companies and going. So we broke it down on the show last night. A year ago today, or yesterday, if you would have had a $67,000 401k and you would have cashed it all out and paid the 25% penalty for taking your money out early, you would have been left with about $50,250. So let's just round down to say $50,000. Today, I want to say it'd be worth like $163,000 or $164,000. When Bitcoin hits $1 million, if you would have did that, your portfolio would be worth about 2.6 million, 2.3 or 4 million, give or take. I'm just kind of ballparking those numbers, so you can kind of do the math yourself. But just to give people an idea, so what are your thoughts on that? If even Bitcoin at 70K, I don't know where you expect it to go. A lot of people are saying $1 million, right? So you still got, 7, 8, 8x in there. Would you be afraid for somebody to do that, or would you think that just doing the ETF route would be the best route for them?
I had a 401k in what was this, 2022. I cashed that out after I left my normal job. I took the penalties, didn't really care, and I just put it all into Bitcoin. So yeah, I did that route as well. It took me a little longer because I couldn't. So I was in a situation where I couldn't take the money out unless I left the job. So as soon as I left the job, I was like, okay, we're taking all the money out. I don't care. We're putting it into Bitcoin. And this was 2022, which was like the perfect time to do that. But if you're doing it now, I understand why you'd do that. Because I had a friend who also did it, I think maybe like mid 2023. It's like he kind of, he's definitely in the black now with doing that and making that decision. Yeah, I really don't know. Like, it depends on the person's situation in terms of that. But as far as like price going to $1 million within like a year or two, it's definitely possible as long as inflows stay the same. if inflows don't stay the same, then yeah, we probably won't hit 1 million. But it really depends. Really depends on Wall Street's appetite.
Yep.
So I know we have like 750K as like our thumbnail, which is fine. That's I'm pretty sure that's overtaking gold's position within the asset market cap class. I think that's doable. But the thing is, like, let's say Bitcoin gets to 750K. That's like what, 14 whatever trillion or 15 trillion. Gold is probably going to be up as well to like, I don't know, 2,700 or even 3,000 by then. So it's probably gonna have to go up more to overtake gold at that point. But I don't know. I really don't know like what's gonna happen. I would say we have a better chance of it being 1 million than going back to 12K for sure. I don't know why people kept saying it's gonna go to 12K, but especially when you saw the momentum and interest from Wall Street. But there are a lot of people who I think this time around did not have enough Bitcoin. So they're just hoping the price just collapses or something so they can get really cheap. And we've been warned about this type of situation for a while. Like, you know, from the reliable accounts, not the like the sensational ones. I'm not going to name any, but you probably know of a few sensational ones. It's like, oh yeah, we're going to be 200, 500K. Like, I don't know, back in like 2017 or 2021, people were saying 200, 500, whatever K by then. But I think now their argument for like above 100K, 200K, 300K is a lot more sound just because of all the inflows coming in from each ETF, despite GBTC dumping on us like every day.
Yeah. That ended yesterday night, correct? If I'm not mistaken. I watched a video by Raj that was saying that they've allowed to do, I forget what it was, where they originally were trying to sell everything, but now they've been able to do something where they took half of that and they were able to move half of it into their new BTC ETF, if I'm not mistaken. And they were able to, like, I forgot what it is, like bond something. And so the investors that had that, they didn't actually have to sell. They were able to take half of it and move it right into their other ETF or something they were doing. He put out a video on it last night. I watched it right at the end of my show. So there's something about sell pressure on Grayscale being done. So they think anyways, but I don't know if you've heard anything about that. But I want to get your take on the current financial system. So if you guys are bigger into politics, you guys probably all know Glenn Beck. Whether you like his content or not, he had a very, very stark message. I got this from a couple conservative friends. I want to get your take on this video.
You think is coming is a recession. What your crazy friends might say to you is coming is maybe a depression. You'd be mistaken. Those are lies. What is coming is a collapse of the dollar. You haven't had one of those. We've never experienced the collapse of the dollar, of the world's reserve currency. This will make us Venezuela. Make no mistake. If you want to be prepared, prepare yourself like people should have prepared in Venezuela. And you have to be aware because soon, I don't know when, but it will happen overnight. Soon, everything will be collapsing and the banks will close and there will be chaos.
That's a lot, man. I mean, what are your standpoints on everything he said there? I mean, I'm pretty aligned with exactly what he said, but I want to take it from, somebody's different opinion. What do you think is going to happen?
It's really hard to tell, but we do have like points to refer back to. Like we're seeing it in Egypt, we're seeing it in Lebanon, we're seeing it in Turkey. I mean, if you're following the Bitcoin price in those countries' currencies, in Argentina as well, definitely Argentina and Venezuela, you're getting a front row seat of what could possibly happen. I mean, eventually I think it will happen, but I guess in the near term, it could possibly happen within the US. You just see Omega and God candles to like crazy numbers. Like, oh, Bitcoin's like 10 million now. Oh, like maybe that's not possible within like the next 10 to 20 years. I think people are still going to go really hard on preserving the dollar, or at least using it because it has the best marketing. And when I say marketing, it has like the military complex backing it. You're getting a front row seat onto like what could possibly happen. So like if you have Bitcoin, or if you have a good amount of Bitcoin, like, or at least your savings are in Bitcoin, you're not necessarily going to be too worried about that situation happening. But if you don't have any Bitcoin, I don't know what to tell you, man. It's just like, I don't know how people are sleeping at night knowing that their earnings power and their savings are just being depleted every day. And they see it happening and they complain about it. They complain about it to me. I know they complain about it to you as well. And everyone who's watching this, I'm sure everyone's complaining about like, oh, I can't get a cheeseburger now for $5. It's now 13 or it's now 15. I'm like, all right, stop eating the cheeseburger and learn about why that's happening. Like, why are things getting more expensive? I don't know. It's well, it's probably happened also in Rome as well. It's like people realize that, okay, the currency's being debased. We're going to loot as much as possible before before it's officially recognized that, okay, Rome has fallen. It's going to be the same thing in the US. And we saw that. We saw that in 2021. We saw that in 2022. So much looting. I'm not talking about like the riots. I'm talking about like
government
within people's like livelihoods, like completely stolen from. So that's going to keep happening.
Mm-hmm.
And as like things like Bitcoin keep going up, more scams are going to happen. And I forgot where I heard this from. It was something like before every like Great Recession or Great Depression, scams are at all-time highs, and they were at all-time highs during 2022. And they've probably gotten a lot worse. I haven't heard a lot, but I have had people reach out to me and say, I've sent my Bitcoin to this address and it's no longer there. Why is that? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, who gave you this address? Oh, this person from this Telegram group. Like, what? That's just like one example of like how you're being looted from. It's just going to keep happening.
So go ahead.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, somebody in the conservative space, his name's Tim Pool. He gave the analogy that, watching our government right now is like watching the Titanic. It's hit the iceberg, right? It's taking on water, right? The United States of America is the Titanic. We've hit the iceberg. The dollar's collapsing, right? And instead of trying to maybe, I don't know, help everybody get onto lifeboats, our government's the people that are like running back into the dining room and like putting all of the silverware into their pockets. And they're like, oh, I'm going to take this silverware. I'm getting it all, right? Like, hey, man, I think we got more top priorities to worry about. Like our borders wide open, our country's being invaded, the dollar's collapsing, our government, our president literally can't even make his way off a stage. He can't even walk upstairs. He's fallen off his bike. The dude sniffs children. And you guys are over here just getting filthy rich. Chuck Schumer, 4 years ago, the man had a $2 million net worth. Today, $82 million. The dude produces absolutely nothing. So our government is literally pillaging and looting your children's future, your life savings, your wealth that you've accumulated, that you've put your energy out into the world. You've traded your time for X amount of these things called fiat dollars that they print out of thin air. And they're continuing to do it. How long do you think it is before a vast majority of Americans are woken up and going, wow, Like this Bitcoin thing is big. And I don't think people understand, like in the conservative movement, I try to explain to people when I started at LFA, my second show, I did a Bitcoin show. And they're all gold people over there. These are all boomers, right? And they weren't into Bitcoin. A lot of people were into gold, and that's fine. I don't blame them. But I tried to break down the 5 key characteristics of money, right? You know, you want it divisible, you want it you want to be able to transport it, you want to be able to recognize it, you want to be able to keep it to yourself, and you don't want them to be able to inflate it away, right? And I explained why Bitcoin is the superior apex predator to any type of currency that we have in the industry today, and why that they should adopt Bitcoin. And it was probably my worst stream. And then I tried a couple of days later to do another talking about Bitcoin, and I waited till like halfway through the stream, and I had like 700 or 800 people in my show, and they always just keep getting bigger and bigger. And I started talking at Bitcoin, and I went down to like 500. So like the people didn't even want to hear about it over there. So I kind of like stepped away, which kind of leads me to believe like a vast majority of people in the conservative movement don't understand Bitcoin, don't know about Bitcoin. And if you just think about 75 million, and that's with cheating, right? So it's probably more like 85 million, or, you know, maybe even 95 million people went out and voted for Trump. So we have this huge network in America of 95 million patriots that kind of, like you said, like it kind of like aligns our values, right? We want sovereignty. We want freedom. We want a government that, you know, can manage a budget. We want a government that, you know, works for we the people. And Bitcoin kind of makes all those values align. So I'm watching like basically like 95 million Americans all waking up just like myself over the last 2 years. And, you know, you were to talk about conspiracy theories last year, 2 years ago, everybody thought, you know, you talked about a rigged election, you might have been a conspiracy theorist, right? Well, now all of these conspiracies are turning out to be true. We have this massive group of Americans that are literally on the verge, I think, of just cashing everything out and going all in on Bitcoin. If that happens, like Glenn Beck said, it's going to happen overnight. How fast do you think it would be for this country to really all start ditching the dollar and moving over to like a Bitcoin standard?
I guess if I had to put a timeline on it, it'd be like, yeah, I guess it really depends on how much Bitcoin goes up. So we'll see at the end of this year and 2025. If we do hit 1 million, I think it'll be much faster than what people expect. If we don't, if we hang around like 200K, I think everything will just be more of like, you know, on schedule with you know, the old guard. It's like, okay, we can delay this whole situation for another election cycle. But I really think it depends on how fast Bitcoin goes up. And in terms of like how people, like, for sure, I agree that the conservatives want more power and autonomy for themselves, you know, to be more self-sovereign. But then you have, I think that only really applies to people who have assets at this point. So if you have assets, even if you have like 10K plus, like that's nothing to sneeze at, because like I think the average person in the US doesn't really have access to $400 in savings or something like that. So
Wow.
I'm pretty sure the only people, yeah, it's like something like, it's like 50% of the US doesn't have access to $400. They're living paycheck to paycheck, or they're just getting EBT stamps or subsidies.
What?
Yeah, it's something crazy like that.
Dude, that's
So
insane, man.
yeah, within the US. So you have this one faction, which is pretty large, you know, people with assets who are like, okay, I got to make sure I don't lose my wealth. They'll wake up a lot more faster than people who have, you know, nothing really going for them. Whether it's their fault or not, I really don't know. It depends on the situation, of course. But if you're somewhere in like New York City, like me, you can see the huge divide. I'm seeing this huge divide every single day. There are people out on like picket lines doing, or at least, you know, trying to get raises. And sometimes I'll go up to them and ask, okay, what do you guys like? What do you expect to get from this employer that you're, I don't know, like picketing against? I don't know if you guys have seen the, what's it called? The protests with the big rat. So they have that going on they put a rat in front of the building where their employer lives, or where their the offices, the main offices.
Uh-huh.
I'm asking them, like, what kind of raise you guys looking for? And they're like, they'll say something like 10 to 15%. And the initial raise was like, I don't know, 1% or something from the employer.
Uh-huh.
So I kind of get why they're protesting to get 10 to 15% most of the time,
Mhm.
but they don't realize that everything, well, maybe they do, but even if they get the 10%, even if you get a 10% raise, it's not going to do anything to improve your cost of living, especially in New York. So I'm just like, okay, you have all these younger people protesting to get these raises, and if you speak to them, they're just full blown communists. So you have like that whole section of people just going full on communist, but expecting raises from their their employers. So I think that's like going to be a huge majority of the younger population, just the ones who see socialism and communism as a solution to everything that's going on. Now, in an ideal world, yeah, sure, that could probably work, but in reality, as we know, that doesn't work at all because we know our history. But they don't seem to want to look into like any successful nation that's gone full communism. You could pick like North Korea, China to an extent, I guess. Although I guess it's more capitalist, but at the same time, like I guess Banana Republic, because you have to bribe certain authorities within China, same as like South America. So I don't think they understand that at all. So like even if you get what you want, you still have to have money to bribe the authorities
Yep.
in control of that situation for you to get what you want. So I'm like, at the end of the day, you always need more and more money to have the lifestyle that you're, I don't know, seeking. So I think a lot of people are just going to be left in the dust. Like probably like 80% of people are not going to realize what's going on until everything collapses. They're just not going to know like what to do. Whatever savings they had, the $500 to $10,000 that they had in savings, completely gone. And they don't,
Yep.
And those people are not necessarily going to care either way because they probably have student loans.
Yep.
They probably have a mortgage. They're like,
Yep.
oh, so if all of my savings and everything are gone, so is the debt, right?
Yep.
Probably not. They're not going to get rid of the debt. They're just going to get rid of like the assets you had, like liquid within a bank. So to get back to your original question, it really depends on how fast Bitcoin's going to go up. So the faster Bitcoin goes up, the more adoption will happen, obviously. But I don't really know what the timeline would be. But I'm pretty sure that people are still going to simp for the dollar. They're still going to do everything they can to have as many dollars as they can. And this is why gambling is going to continue, especially within the crypto space. People are still going to buy meme coins. They're still going to gamble whatever they can to, I don't know, make a couple extra $100 or $10,000, and then they'll leave it in USD or they'll gamble it until they lose everything. Which happens really often in the space. Like you can see it on the timeline. People just gamble until they have nothing left. So even if they win, they're going to continue gambling because they're still trying to get more dollars. They're not trying to get more Bitcoin. They're trying to get more dollars. So yeah, this could play out like pretty quickly, more so than I think people expect. But I wouldn't be surprised if this happens in like, I don't know, 10 to 20 years. I'd say I think it's more likely to happen quicker than we expect. Like on a percentage basis. But I think we're like 70% more of like, this is going to happen faster than we expect.
Yep. Hey, folks, if you guys are just joining us, do me a huge solid. Swing over to Twitter and follow Satoshi DENIZ over on X. The links to all of his pages are down below in the description. These are the type of people that I've been reaching out to. I'm trying to bring the most educational and people that are actually putting out really good quality content about Bitcoin. They're going to help guide you guys in the right direction. And also, please do me a huge solid, guys. If you guys can just swing over there. If you guys are watching us on Rumble, I think we got about 50 people watching over on Rumble, probably a couple hundred over on YouTube. If you guys could do us a huge solid and just make sure you swing down there, hit that thumbs up. It lets the algorithm know that you guys are enjoying this content. This content today is brought to you by My Pillow, folks. If you guys go to mypillow.com and use promo code MATA, you will get 50% off everything store-wide. Treat your grandma, treat your girlfriend to a nice new robe, a pair of slippers, one of those My Pillows. Sleep on a nice ice-cold My Pillow 2.0, brought to you by Mike Lindell. Mike Lindell's out there fighting to save this country. Fox News just deplatformed him from Fox News, so he can no longer run the My Pillow codes on Fox News. So we're going to step up and support him. Again, that is promo code MATA. It'll get you 50% off everything store-wide. And we are back, folks, over on the Ryan Matta Show. I want to talk to and get a little bit of your commentary. This guy has like a Vivek parody account, and it's hilarious because he's always tweeting about Bitcoin. It's Vivek for real. And he says, Jeff Booth on why Bitcoin is going to $42 million. I want to play this video and get your commentary on it.
So what's different here is the $900 trillion of global wealth. Imagine you have a percentage of that ledger, right? And you could say, like, if Mark Moss has $1 million, you could just calculate exactly what percent you have of that ledger. If that ledger is 1.5 quadrillion tomorrow, because there's a whole bunch more manipulation of money, and your part of that ledger doesn't go up by that amount, you lost money, but you didn't know you lost money.
Sure.
That's what you're living in. And that's what everyone is pricing theirs in. And when they naturally say, what is Bitcoin price in this ledger? They're making that calculation error. When I say it's saying decentralized and secure on the base ledger, then it is inevitable if it stays decentralized and secure. It reprices everything in the 900 trillion. So you could say, how much of a percentage of 21 million do I have for all of time? And compare and contrast, how much do you need for your lifestyle? If you can hold it decentralized and secure, it will reprice everything else. So then your next question, I think, is so.
What are your thoughts on that one right there?
Yeah, I think the more you learn about Bitcoin, the more you realize, okay, like maybe you take it from a huge macro perspective of like, okay, so what if all of the assets are just priced in Bitcoin or within Bitcoin?
Mm-hmm.
Like, let's say real estate's priced at fair value, gold's priced at fair value of like just its use case for jewelry or electronics. So taking out the premium of like an investment vehicle. It's a pretty powerful way to get yourself like in the headspace of, oh, okay, this is the thing that I need to have my wealth in.
Yep.
So if I have X amount of Bitcoin, that means that doesn't change. Like rules never change. And that's the beautiful part about being in Bitcoin. It's like the rules don't change. And if they do change, we need consensus on that. And if consensus is saying we should change it for whatever reason to have things be more efficient, faster, we make more money in the future. Like when I say make more money, like the value of the protocol goes up, then yeah, okay, we're all for that. Let's do it. But there hasn't really been a huge enough change in Bitcoin where everyone's like, we need to do everything on like a whole 180 on like what we established back in 2009. So that's kind of the beauty. That also goes back to your first question of like why I'm so at ease with things is because the rules don't change. Like if you're in politics, if you're even at like a mom and pop shop of like, I don't know, selling meat or a woodworking department of a bigger company, things always change. People shift around. They're like, oh yeah, we need to, I don't know, have X amount of people in this position because of whatever standards we change at that point. Protocols change. Like you can't, I don't know, it could be something stupid like you can't be drinking water from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Nothing as trivial as that on the Bitcoin network, because things have been working since 2009 to the point where it's like we don't need to change anything in 2024. And Wall Street has obviously recognized that. They've given it, like 15 years to be like, all right, let's see how it does. Oh, it's kind of volatile. Whatever, we can figure that out because we have ungodly amounts of trillions of dollars to not necessarily suppressed price, because people are going to say, oh yeah, price is suppressed to the downside. It also happens to the upside with big players like that. That kind of falls in line with how things should be, because you're not going to have too many opportunities in human history where the rules stay consistent for everyone. Like, it doesn't matter if you have $10 of Bitcoin versus $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. The same rules apply to each person. So for all the communists out there who want equal everything, to a certain degree, this is the type of place you want to be in, because this is the closest you're going to get to actual communism. But at the same time, because the price goes up and down ferociously, we're also experiencing a free market. So everything is freely priced. It's just all the rules are the same for everyone at an equal level. And then, yeah, maybe if you invest in like getting as much hash power as possible, like getting these mining computers, these ASICs, maybe you'll have a bit more influence on like a mining pool, but your influence is not going to go beyond that. We've experienced that in 2017 with the block size wars. They tried that with Bcash. They tried that with, I guess, Satoshi's Vision, BSV, and there's like thousands of other forks where people were trying to imitate Bitcoin and were unsuccessful. And obviously, a lot of them are going to say, "Well, that's not real Bitcoin. That's not what excuse me, what Satoshi founded Bitcoin on." I guess the main argument for that is that people want to be able to spend their Bitcoin freely. Like, they want to spend things like they want. I guess that's one of the biggest hangups that I've noticed from a lot of people who are just getting into the space. They're like, well, why can't I buy things with it? Well, because we're not necessarily at that point now, guys. Like, it took us like 200,000 years to figure out how to not get our money stolen from. Like 200,000 plus years to figure that out. And we have Bitcoin. It figured it out. I can't steal it from you unless I force you. I don't know even if I force you, if I delete you from existence, I still won't be able to get your Bitcoin because I don't know the seed phrase or the words to get your private key. Like, we just figured that out. So if you're trying to have a medium of exchange, well, just give it another decade or two, man. We're not at that point. We're not at fair value of Bitcoin. This is why the price swings up and down like crazy. There's no fair value yet. And this is why everyone's saying, oh, we're going to hit, 1 million to 42 million and beyond. Just wait around. You're at that. We're still at the point of price discovery, even though we were at like 15K back in like November of 2022. That's still price discovery. You're not going to want to spend your Bitcoin at that point because, as we saw, price went up to like 70 plus K to today. So this is kind of just like, in a weird way, this is the most boring part of Bitcoin's phase, of just figuring out where to like price it.
Yep.
So it's kind of weird. Yeah, it's just we're just like in a weird situation. Very transitory, I guess you could call it.
Very transitory. I like it, man. Well, Dennis, we are wrapping it up here. We are at that 1 hour mark, man. I want everybody to know where they can follow you. Tell them about, do you have personal websites? Are you writing for any companies? Let's talk about where you work, where you're contributing to Bitcoin. Promote anything you'd like, man. It's an honor to have you on the show.
Sure, man. Yeah. Like Ryan said, just follow me at Satoshi DENIZ on X or Twitter. I write for BTC Times. We have the handle BTC on Twitter. So if you want to follow them as well for news and insight into what's going on in the space. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, thank you so much for having me on, man. This was a lot of fun.
Man, it was an honor to have you on the show, buddy. Thank you so much for joining us today, and look forward to having you back anytime you want to come on. If you write a good article and you want to break it, you want to come over even just to jump on and shoot the shit for 15 minutes, man, you're always welcome, and it's an honor to have you back on the show, man. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that is a wrap over here on the Ryan Matta Show. We do 2 crypto live streams every day, one at 10 a.m. and one at 9 p.m. The morning live streams are strictly Bitcoin, so if you really are adamant about learning about and getting educated about Bitcoin, come to our morning show. It's going to be strictly Bitcoin and Bitcoin news over here on the morning shows. If you guys want to learn about some other stuff that's going on in the crypto space and be trying to bring on some bigger CEOs of these different crypto projects, again, those are crypto companies. Bitcoin is the only thing that's decentralized in this space. So keep hitting that like button, keep joining us. I also do a political show on LFA TV called Matter of Fact every day at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is exclusively over on Rumble. So if you want to help to fight to save America, if you want to see what's really going on with inside of our own government and how corrupt things have got, swing over to LFA TV over on Rumble at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hit that like button on your way out the door. God bless each and every one of you guys, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace. See you guys tonight.
Run.